LightCasting Network.
Hello, you beautiful souls, and welcome to the very first episode of Spirituali-tea. I'm your host and self-proclaimed spiritual hype girl, Leena Lemos. I am so grateful that you are here. The intention of this spiritual talk show is to create a safe space to choose joy, curiosity, and nerd out about all things spirituality. Each week, we will spend a few moments coming back into our bodies, aligning with a mantra, and then exploring a wide range of spiritual topics from my own 2 cents and time spent with an amazing lineup of guests. So, are you ready to get started? If you could join me by bringing awareness back to your body and to your breath. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and take a moment to center yourself with just the deepest breath that you've taken all day. I believe that the digital content we consume truly affects our spiritual and our mental health. So this is my way of making sure that we are consciously creating and consuming together here now. And now it's time for the segment where we learn our mantra for the week that is intuitively selected by my tea bag as a conduit of the universe. Think of it as an oracle card pulling, but through a tea bag. And I've tried really hard not to look at this. So our mantra for the week is, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. That is such a good one, which I will add to, who told you to rush? Who told you that you have to go, go, go? Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Let's carry that mantra with us this week to remind us to be present, to be here now, and not to rush so much. My favorite Ben Folds quote is, time takes time, and I always apply that and think about it when I feel like I'm just all over the place and rushing for no reason. If today's mantra speaks to you, please don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you turn on the bell notification so you know every single time we upload a new episode. And now it's time for a segment called Millennial Metaphors, where I use nostalgic parts of our childhood to reflect on spiritual lessons. Part of my mission here on this earth is to make spirituality more relatable for the collective, but also indulge in what lights me up. And in this case, it's witty banter and snarky pop culture references. So let's get started. One of the hardest things that I've had to accept in my spiritual journey is that life is not linear, but in fact made up of micro and macro seasons. Once you can accept that life ebbs and flows, even if it's in a get me the off this roller coaster kind of way, it can forever change the way that you can see and honor exactly where you are in this now moment. You know how in the game MASH, during some rounds, you were married to Zac Efron, living in your mansion with your 17 dogs, but during other rounds, you were hunkering down in a shack with your best friend's idiot brother who just ate green ketchup-covered Dunkaroos? Our souls need balance. Our path needs duality. Isn't life really profound in that way? We are continuously given cocoons to infinitely metamorphosize. And that's the beauty of our humanity. Sometimes we're the goop, and sometimes we're the butterfly. Sometimes we're baby spice, and sometimes we're scary spice. Yet we must face these seasons of joy, sorrow, adversity, friction, neutrality, and passion with the same loving and open heart. Our job is to see the opportunity in all of our seasons and remove judgment that our less favorable ones are bad or a step in the wrong direction. Chances are they are exactly what you need to heal and grow. Please know that you are loved and you are enough no matter what season you are currently in. Either way, it too shall pass. Except for Zac Efron. He was never a face. If you've been here since the Enlightenedhood OG days, then you may know my next guest, dear friend and predictive astrologer, Crystal B. Crystal was on one of the very first episodes of my podcast, and it was her birth chart reading that ultimately inspired me to step into the spiritual space. Crystal just published her very first book, Feed Your Moon, which breaks down how we go through astrological skins every 2.3 years. Crystal is sitting down with me to share how she got this book out into the world and how we can use astrology to navigate these seasons of our lives. Catch our interview right after this.
House of Enlightenedhood is reimagining spirituality through its innovative co-op and open source spiritual platforms. We believe spiritual wisdom is our birthright and must be accessible and inclusive to every soul on this planet. Together we will birth the next chapter in human consciousness and build a new earth. Join our movement today. Hi, I'm so happy to see you. How are you?
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. This is very exciting.
I know. Welcome to the first episode of my talk show.
I'm so glad to be a part of it. I was so honored that you asked me to be part of your first episode.
Well, you were right there in the beginning with my podcast too, so I thought it was only, only perfect that you were here.
We'll have a little Crystal B stamp on
Yes, so let's talk about your book because we have been waiting to do this for so long. Yes. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Thank
As
you.
it slowly makes its way in the world. And this has just been such a long time coming. And I am so excited for you. So tell us about Feed Your Moon.
Okay, so the book it has been a long time coming. It's funny, I was just talking to somebody yesterday and they were like, was this like a pandemic thing? Did you write it in the pandemic? And the answer to that is no. This has been in the works for many years before the pandemic. If anything, the pandemic slowed me down in getting it, but everything happens the way it should. But the book it's called Feed Your Moon, and it really is my special cocktail for the recipe of self-discovery that I talk to with my clients. And I have clients all over the world. I have been a practicing astrologer for, gosh, it's almost 14 years now. So I've talked to a lot of people, and I really understand the questions that people ask and the way of looking at your astrology in order to decode your story. And because I feel like there's more to your story. And so this book really helps you to decode how you can understand, you know, all the different parts to you. And one of my favorite marker for really understanding not only who we are, but how we're evolving and how we're changing, because I really will always I will, debate the person or negate the person that says we don't change. Like, I don't believe that. When I look at our charts, like, we are always changing, and it actually can boil down to we change every approximately 2.3 years on average. The starting place always begins with your moon and where your moon was when you were born. And it evolves and it changes. So my moon was in Sagittarius when I was born. And over the course of, and again, some of our moons, it depends on where your moon was. Like, my moon was in the later stages. So I quickly then transitioned into Capricorn. And then I went into Aquarius and then Pisces. And I went through every single sign. But that happens to all of us. And so over the course of 27 years, we go through every single sign.
First of all, I didn't know you were Sagittarius moon because I am too.
Yes.
So that's so fascinating. And yeah, when you brought this up to me, what was it, 2 years ago now? I was like, this is just mind blowing. And I
It might
remember
have
you,
even been 3 years ago, because
yeah,
you came into the original
but
astropad.
I remember you telling this to me. And when you were going through, well, actually,
let's rewind, because you kind of did told me this without actually telling it to me when you did my chart. And I remember so vividly you telling me that I was going into my Aquarius stage, and that I believe the phrase you used was that I was going to start attracting weirdos, but in the best way possible. I was like, "Yes, I can't wait because that's my jam." And the idea of these skins and these astrological skins has stuck with me ever since. And I remember asking you when we did the podcast, and we were like, "Can we please talk about this?" And you're like, "No, not yet. Wait for my book to come out." So I'm just so
Right.
excited to
Yeah.
talk about it now, because the idea of it is just so fascinating. And I completely agree that we're always changing and evolving. And especially
Yes.
those of us who are much more self-aware, whether you want to call it being on the spiritual path, when you have that type of, drive for personal development and growth, it's very apparent that we are always evolving and we're always changing. We
Yes.
also have these really interesting seasons of our lives that have certain themes. And I think
And
once,
the skins reflect each,
yeah,
like, it is a season. I mean, I call it a skin, but each skin or season or phase is very representative of each of the 12 signs of the zodiac.
and it's fascinating to me that before Aquarius, I was in Capricorn, and that's when I went into my entrepreneurial skin, and when I started
Yes.
Enlightenedhood and started, start this whole mission and this whole project 2.5 years ago. And so it's
Building.
amazing to me how much truth there is to that.
There is. And look, I wouldn't I wouldn't put something out there or or be so passionate about it unless I saw it working. Like, this is not a tool that I've dreamed up. It's a tool that has been used for thousands of years. I just have chosen to focus on it a lot with my clients. Like, if you've ever come to a personal reading with me, my clients know that I talk to them about many different things, but I have a skin discussion in there. I
Yeah.
have a discussion about, what phase you're in and how to be mindful, because I am a predictive astrologer, but I'm also a mindful one, meaning, like, yeah, I can share with you where you're going to go next and what you should prepare for, but you also have to use your current skin to your
Yeah.
advantage,
Yeah.
because there is the universe puts you in, I call them clothes too. Like, I like to sometimes when I explain it to people, I explain it like you go out shopping and you buy a whole new wardrobe, but you're wearing those clothes, you're wearing that skin in order to attract the energy, but also like put it out into the world as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I love that you brought up the term mindful about it, because I think we live in such a instant gratification society, and to know that these skins are, span over 2 years, and that this theme is kind of going to extend through our life throughout a few years, I think can help us approach it mindfully. Because I
Yeah,
know for me, especially when I've been on the spiritual path, I'm like, I want to grow now. I want to evolve now. Like, can it happen yet? Like, universe, please activate me. But we forget that time takes time, like on this earth plane, and that we kind of have to
it
go
does.
through it and grow through it. So I love,
Yes.
having this idea that, like, okay, this is the next 2.5 years of my life. How can I use it to my advantage and grow from it?
And that is my core belief, you know what I mean? Like, and but it works if you work it, if you and I've really taken the time to understand each of these phases and each of these skins, and it doesn't just affect us personally, it affects our relationships,
Mm,
it affects the people that we connect with. We all know, like, there's been people that you've met and maybe they're just a phase, right? You stay with them for just a few years, or and you're like, what the heck was that about? But it was part of the skin, it was part of the, you needed them for a reason. There was a purpose to your connection. But some people, we do keep for the long haul, but you need that the skin that you're in when you attract these influences, these people that are necessary for your path. It really does reflect, the skin that you're in at the time that happens.
so let's talk about this beautiful photo shoot that you did. in launch with your book that I was so honored to be a part of, where you chose people who were each in the 12 different skins, did
Yes.
a beautiful photo shoot that reflected the essence and the elements of that
With
skin. Yes.
Celestina Ando. She did an amazing job.
And I'm going to put the pictures up on the screen, but
Great.
they're just, when we did the Zoom call to go over them, my mind was just blown because everyone's,
The collective.
essence, it was just so beautiful. And I have to say, my favorite one is Virgo.
Together, Amy and I have followed her skins for many years. So she's always been one of my greatest supporters with my astrology. So, and she understands the concept because we have a story for every one of her skins. But
Oh,
I do want to share a little bit about the photo collection because it really was something really special and unique that was formed in the heart of the pandemic, because I knew
yes.
that I was publishing the book in 2021. So I needed to do a lot of things in 2020. And even though the pandemic slowed me down, like I still was moving forward with a lot of things behind the scenes. And it was actually in February of 2020, I think, where I asked everybody to be part of the shoot. And I knew that things were going to be very restricted. I wanted to do it in August. It was very important to me from an astrological perspective to do it in August. And I also knew that travel restrictions were around. But the way that the skins work, I needed to have 12 represented, but each person needed to be local and they needed to be in that correct skin.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very difficult thing to be able to not only locate the person, but have them say yes to my, crazy project in the pandemic. And bare their skin for me. You know what I mean? Like and it's a very vulnerable kind of thing to be able to bare yourself like that. And I was so grateful that I found 12 people and that Celestina said that she would do it. Because again, when we made this in February, when we come up with the idea in February, everything was very much shut down. Like nothing was opened yet, but I knew it would eventually open back up and I knew we'd be able to do it. But at the same time, there was a fear, there was, restrictions. I know it was so difficult, but it came together beautifully. And even though each of the 12 people are not necessarily in that same skin again, like for instance, Amy is no longer in Virgo, she's now in Libra. And you were newly transitioned into Aquarius. Like
Yes.
you had just made the transition. So it was like you still have a good, at this stage, you have a good year and a half to go, or maybe like a year. But it was a very select, the timing had to be perfect. And but what happened with those pictures, so they were done, Celestina delivered them to me in November, and then I put them together in the presentation, which I showed to all of you in March, and then they released out into the world in May.
It's so beautiful. I just have chills thinking about them because it's just such a unique way to share, this concept in a
Yeah, with
way that
people.
that it humanizes it and it adds just this really beautiful, like vulnerable
I
but
wanted people.
cosmic element to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, the actual presentation, if you want to see what Leena's talking about, it's on feedyourmoon.com. It's on the full presentation is there. It's about 4 minutes and it really goes through, you can see every single picture that is part of the presentation, and it goes through what the skins are about, and it's set to music, like it's really fun to watch it.
I love the mantras that you made that go with each of them because I think that truly depicts, the true essence of each of the skins.
And that's in the book, like each of the because I have mantras for each of the skins, because you should be, I believe in mantras. I believe in like having power messages around
Yes.
us. And like for you in the Aquarius skin, it's getting in touch with your originality. And you know, it really is everybody who I speak to, they agree with it. Like these
Yeah.
mantras were not just whipped up. It's because, and that's something else that's in the book. Like there's a lot of stories. Of course, the people, their real names are not, I didn't use real names. I changed the names for the book purposes, but there's a lot of stories about how people have used these skins and what they have done. And
Yeah.
which of course makes it, it's one thing to have like a reference astrology book, but I wanted something more meaningful. I wanted it to be something that people could read easily, no matter your level of astrology. Because some
Yeah.
astrology books can be very weighty and very meaty and very boring.
It's just so much, and if you have no idea, you're just like, what the eighth house and the transits and the moon, and it's just like, it can be so much, especially when you want to learn more about yourself. You're like, I have no idea where to start. And I mean,
Right.
that's, thank goodness for people like you who can break it down in a very accessible and grounded way, so that we can learn more about ourselves from a very, you know, universal, place,
Yes.
because I truly believe that astrology is, the universal compass for everything.
It's just such a great positive way of framing the world.
Yes.
And from so many different aspects, to like a lot of people call me an astro therapist, and they love to, and believe me, I am a very big advocate of mental health. And you and I have spoken about this before. I'm a
Yeah.
huge advocate of traditional therapy, like, but to know how to frame what's going on in your life and your feelings, and what is happening through the eyes of the planets and the constellations, like it brings a whole new awareness. And one of my favorite quotes in the book, and I wrote it because I believe it myself: astrology makes sense when nothing else does.
Yes. Yeah.
And I there's a whole story, you'll read it in the book. Like I give you my background with my daughter and how she was very sick when she was a baby, and how I ended up, actually, even though I grew up with astrology, my dad is also an astrologer. Like it wasn't something that I grew up thinking I was going to do. It wasn't until my daughter got sick and I needed to use astrology to help me through a really dark time that I really kind of found my gifts. But I understand what it's like to be in that dark place. And astrology is so fantastic for giving us courage to move ahead. And also, like, it's nice to kind of know, like, to validate why something is happening. Like, if you're in a bad spot, the last thing we want people to say is, it's all going to work out. Everybody, it's going to be okay. I feel like people, and I feel like this myself, like, I want to know why. I want to know why this is
Yeah.
happening. What is
Yeah.
the influence behind it? Like, why do I have to go through this? And if you frame it in the using the planets as part of the story, it really brings it to life in a whole new way.
I think so too. I think one of the things you taught me about was the Saturn return, and
Yes.
how, close approaching your 30s when Saturn makes its way back to where it was when you were born, and how, so many people go through huge life transitions when that happens. And to know those kind of milestones and those markers of what's happening with the planets, that we can kind of use to prepare, not prepare us, but kind of soften the blow a little bit of whatever is happening in our life. Yeah, I
But it no,
completely agree.
but I like that word prepare. Like it is, look, we all have to live life, right? Like even if you know a date is coming, and this is, what to expect, there still is a little bit of a surprise element to it. You've never experienced it. You could have somebody explain it to you and tell it to you, but you don't know until you live it.
Hmm. Yes. Yep. That is so
But you know
true.
what's funny? What's interesting? What's interesting about you bringing up the Saturn return, because that is such a pivotal time in our lives. Um, that happens approximately between every 28 and 30 years. The skins, you go through every single sign of the zodiac over approximately 27 years. So your full rotation around the zodiac actually coincides with your Saturn return.
Oh,
So,
that's right.
and that's when,
Interesting.
even though we are an adult by the time we're 18, like I always am feel like as an astrologer that we're not truly an adult until we go through our Saturn return. Because it's like that's when you have to man up. That's when you have to woman up. That's when you've got to it's tough to become an adult. It's tough to bear your responsibilities to um but at that stage you've gone through every single sign, and that is an important part of the conversation, because
That
a lot of people
yeah.
can stereotype the signs, and I really don't like that, because every sign, and this is also symbolic in the cover, and the cover is amazing. Lori Mena of Cosmic Collage did the cover for me. I'm an absolute fan of all of her work. I sent all of you guys journals, and so
Yeah.
what I always said, I wanted a moon, a blooming moon, because I love flowers and I wanted this to be inspirational. And it was actually her that she came up with the the light and the dark, the black and the white,
Mm,
and that's very symbolic of the skins, because we go in, we go out, we go in, we go out, and
yeah.
there's a light to us and there's a shadow. And every sign,
Yes.
when you go through the 12 signs, like one goes in, one goes out, one goes in, one goes out. So we're constantly always going through that, light and dark phases, going in and out. Like if we just use you for an example, right now you're in a light, whereas the
Mhm.
last skin was dark.
Yes. Yes, it was. Yes, it was because that was postpartum and that was a lot of fun. It's like the universal, truth of the dichotomy of the light and the dark. And I think we
Yes,
forget how much we have to equally honor both of them.
absolutely. And the other thing is that, it's necessary for our evolution. I think so many of us want to always stay in the light. And look, I can be guilty of that too. So I'm not like standing on a a pulpit and saying like, just follow the light. Like there is a lot of benefit of the dark, and you really, like, a lot of
Yes.
this book for me was written in dark phases. Like some of it was written in light phases too, but I came to the greatest meaning of the book in my in my darkest phases. So I really, there is something about that dark that's necessary in order to come to
Mm.
the light.
I completely agree because the dark is when we're transmuting and we're getting rid of that stuff and we're like deep, deep in it. And we're like, okay, don't need this anymore. Don't need this anymore. This is where I need to grow. This is where I need to change so I can bring myself back into that light.
And it's very, the dark is your truth, right? Like you have to, you find the truth. The other thing, not to step away from the light and the dark, but something else that I have in the book is that I'm a very big advocate of um opposites, because I feel, and the signs, each sign has an opposite, and you need it actually for balance. So I have a whole discussion about how you can find balance with the polarities of each of the
Hmm.
signs, because you need them. And so let's say like I'm a Pisces, and my sun is in Pisces, and my exact opposite is Virgo. Like I discuss why those two signs actually, they may not agree on everything because they're opposites, they're at two opposite ends of the spectrum, but you need them in order to come to your ultimate truth. So like again, it's another, you need that very opposite polarity in order to come to truth.
It's so true. That's so true. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so
You're welcome.
excited for you and for your
Thank
book
you.
and for this finally to be out in the
I
world to,
know.
to truly just give people another tool to help navigate this crazy world that we live in.
It makes sense when nothing else does.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to continue this theme for my podcast. What are your wise words to end on for anyone listening today? Well, listening, watching. Oh my gosh, I need to step up my game for anyone listening and or watching today who just needs, a pick me up to step into their truth. What are your wise words to end on?
The thing I want to tell everybody is that there's more to your story. And never stop believing that. Never stop believing that this is the end. Like, keep going because there's so much more on the other side. And even if you're in your darkest moment or in one of those dark phases, just know that the light will come. And it's so important to use the moment that you're in because that's going to help cultivate and grow and allow you to be, bloom. That's why I love flowers, because I think about us blooming. It's going to allow you to bloom. And the other thing I want to say is that a lot of people, almost everybody, gave me a no for this book. It was a lot of rejection to get this book out into the world. And finally, after so many no's, I said yes to myself. And that is so important for us to do. And I did finally get a yes. And when I published my book, I had Barnes and Noble buy it for their stores. And they were the first, after myself, they were the first ones to say yes. And so if you want to buy the book, you can buy it online. But I also would love for you to go into a Barnes and Noble because they said yes to me and I want to support them. And I'm making my way through all the stores, one store at a time. But even if you are getting a lot of no's like I did, like that yes will come. And maybe it needs to begin with your yes, like I had to do. But once you say yes to yourself, I truly believe that everything else starts to fall into place. So don't stop. Say yes to yourself and keep going. And visit your Barnes and Noble. That's my words of
Well,
wisdom.
thank you so I love it. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure as always. Thank you so much for watching Spirituali-tea. If you liked our show, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and send it to anyone who you think might need a little light today. If podcasts are your thing, you can catch the audio version anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time, beautiful souls.